I make plans and then I never keep them. So June is now over. We're in July. It feels weird that we're more than halfway through the year. I don't know really where June went. But let's talk about what I read in June. In June, I only read 4 books. I had an average star rating of 3.875 between the 4 of them. The first book that I read, I just used air quotes there because it wasn't really a book. It was one of the Great Courses lectures which are offered through Audible, and this was something called Understanding Japan, A Cultural History, and it was hosted by Mark J. Ravina, and it was actually really interesting. It didn't really take any sensical linear approach to discussing various cultural aspects of Japan. It ranged from history to art to poetry to politics, kind of all of it in this strange non-linear manner, but for me that kept it interesting, and I absolutely adored listening to it, especially having been to Japan in March. So I rated this 5 out of 5 stars. I found it really interesting, and the lecturer was very engaging in the way that he delivered the information. The second book that I read was Ash Princess by Laura Sebastian. I remember this popping up as like a hotly anticipated arc, I think, for people. I definitely saw it make the rounds, and I listened to the audiobook via my library, and I remember pinging some of my friends while I was listening to it, and one of the things I complained about was, oh no, a wild love triangle appeared. And it was awful. It was so unnecessary and awful. But when I finished, the only thing I could say was that this book really wishes it was The Winter's Curse. The Winter's Curse I actually have just out of frame on the shelf above this main one. It's the first book in a trilogy by Marie Witowski, and I always describe it kind of as a sort of political fantasy. It's much more about scheming and intellect and being able to play courtly games, and it's fantastic. It is so incredible, and it's very well written. The stakes are always high. I believe the characters, and the characters are multidimensional. And this is the issue I took with Ash Princess. The characters are ultimately tropes and nothing else. There's nothing to these characters. You have the princess from the conquered nation who's been abused, is essentially going through like almost a personality schism and PTSD and everything else, but there's nothing else to her, and she snaps out of it pretty quickly, which I found a little odd, and I understand it was basically for the purpose of moving the plot along, but it was still like, is there more to this character? She's just good. There's nothing else to her. And then there's the kind of emo rebel who's gonna be the one love interest, and I'm like, is there anything more to this? No, he's just gonna be a kind of emo rebel. Okay. And then you have the prince who's chafing against a brutal totalitarian father. I'm like, cool, like he wants to be good, he wants to be better than his father. Is there anything else to this? No, of course there's not. And I just kept thinking, this really wishes it was The Winter's Curse. And that frustrated me because there were elements of Ash Princess that I found interesting. There were snippets of world lore where I went, this could be so effing interesting if we did something with them. But we don't. So I didn't like this book. I rated it 2 out of 5 stars. It gets the 2 just for the little nuggets of world lore. And that's it. Third book that I read was Sky in the Deep by Adrienne Young, and I really like this book. I actually filmed a review and then never edited it. I will edit it, so I won't say too much about this book because I will edit that review and get it up. This is a book that's clearly inspired by the Vikings. People are probably gonna list it in fantasy, but I'm like, it's not really a fantasy, it's an adventure novel with that kind of Viking element. And it ended up being this really incredible standalone. It's a standalone that blew my mind. And I loved the main character. Adrienne Young's prose style isn't necessarily very like lush and evocative when it comes to descriptions, but when she's trying to get you to understand a character's frustration and grief and rage and anger, she does emotion really well. And that's what drew me in, because when the protagonist was feeling so frustrated, I'm sitting there, you know, listening to this book or reading my arc, and like grinding my teeth with her because I feel that. And that is such a plus of this novel when it is definitely a character journey. And I really just ended up enjoying this book. I was like, yes, absolutely. I gave it a 4 out of 5 because there were definitely things where I went, yeah, this is like a little rushed, but I'm not like super mad at it, but I do need to dock for being a little rushed in places. And finally, the last book that I read was The Plastic Magician by Charlie Ann Holmberg. Now, I love the Paper Magician trilogy. That was my introduction to Charlie Ann Holmberg, and I remember, I think I got it when Kindle would do their like free Kindle First program. Do they even still do that? I don't know. Or I got it for like 99 cents. Whatever, I don't know. But I remember getting it on a whim and reading it and finding it just charming. Charming and delightful are two words that I always use with Charlie Ann Holmberg, because no matter what she's writing, there is a charm to it. There's something just pleasant about it. And especially the world of The Paper Magician, and that trilogy was fantastic. Now, book 4 is a spin-off, takes place after that trilogy. The two kind of primary characters of that trilogy make a little cameo, but they don't necessarily impact the plot, which I like. That is, for me, how a spin-off should work. And I love our new protagonist. I love her new love interest. There's always a love interest. And he's adorable, and she's adorable. And this is just so effing charming. Like, I definitely figured out some things, like some of the twists. I figured them out long before the plot told me what they were, but I kind of didn't care. I enjoy being back in this world. I enjoy the kind of just smile that Charlie Ann Holmberg's books bring to my face. So I'm so glad The Plastic Magician is out. And I'm ready for the next books and what I'm assuming will be another trilogy. Like, I'm here for it. I love it. But yeah, here's to July. Here's to, hopefully, reading more. Yeah. Thanks for watching me ramble today. If you'd like to see more from me, go ahead and click that button with my face on it. It'll take you to my channel, where I ramble about a whole lot of different things. Got some thoughts of your own? Go ahead and leave them down in the comments. And make sure that if you want to see more ramblings from me, you click that little subscribe button. That's it for me today, you guys, so until next time, cheers.